What's up, guys? Today I got episode 1 of a new series I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going through each team in alphabetical order and looking at their offseason and some of the moves they should do, some of the players they should go for, sign. So let's dive into it. Episode 1, we got the Anaheim Ducks here today. I think there's a lot of interesting angles the Ducks could take here. I actually, looking over it, do see a road where this team could get back to contention, probably sooner than people think they could. Um, but they could also continue rebuilding because I don't think they have much time left in their rebuild. I do think they are showing progress and getting towards a more competitive range. So let's see. So this is what their roster would look like as of the end of the season. So there's a few RFAs who would probably fill some of these holes. UFAs, they're going to be losing a few guys, but no one too serious. But the RFAs here, so I think our first moves here are you want to re-sign Dostal for sure. I think that's probably priority number one, getting him extended. If I had to guess, it'll be somewhere in the realm of like $4 million for 2 years. You know, feel free to let me down in the comments your guys' thoughts on all these moves, what you think's realistic and what's not. Also, you could go into PuckPedia and put some comments on my roster directly from there. So let me know. I think 4 mil for 2 years. I think that's good. He's still pretty young. He hasn't, had like a full time like starter role yet because he was kind of sharing the load with Gibson. But I think Gibson will probably be traded just because there's not a lot of goalies right now in the goalie market, and there are several teams that could use a goalie, especially to help get them closer to contention. And I think Gibson's probably the number one like goalie on the trade bait list right now. So you know, it's most likely going to be Dostal's net for a long time. But I think they only give him 2 years here at a deal like 4 million because he has to prove that he can handle the load all by himself and be a good caliber starting goalie. Obviously he'll get paid more in the future once this deal would be up, but I think that's good for now. Next, McTavish. I think McTavish will go somewhere in this range, $6 million for 5 years. Again, if you disagree, let me know. I think that's pretty fair for McTavish. I think that's about market value. So now, with these moves, I mean, Dostal's your starting goalie. I think McTavish is your 2C. I'm gonna put Killorn here at 3C just because there's a certain person I have in mind to fill this right winger 1 role. Maybe you know who it is, maybe you don't, but we'll see. But before we get into that, there's a few more of these guys I think should be signed. We'll go Lundestrom, like maybe 1.2 million for like 2 years, something like that. Maybe even 1 year. We'll go with 2 for now. Drew Hellison, I think like 900K for 2 years for him would be valid. Nestorenko, I mean, yeah, he's only 23. He could be a good fourth line center for them, probably like 1 million for 2 years. And I think Sam Colangelo could also grab a roster spot here, 1 million for 2 years. I think Leeson, I mean, you could let go. Let's see. I mean, yeah, he's second round pick in 2019. I mean, he kind of is what he is at this point, I think. But let's see. After those signings, yeah, I mean, you're not really itching for depth. So that's the whole fourth line taken care of. Plus, you get an extra insurance defenseman or trade piece. I've seen a few rosters where people trade him. But I think the big fish that the Anaheim Ducks go for this summer, Mitch Marner. I don't know if he'll go there just because so many teams will want him. So everyone's talking about the state taxes right now. California, I think, has like the highest state tax in the U.S. So I think if he's going to Anaheim, it would have to be something around this. Just because it's harder to compete with the teams in no tax states in that regard. So I think if you give him 14.5 million, I think that's enough money to maybe win him over. only reason he wouldn't go to Anaheim in this situation would just be because he likes another team better or feels like he has, better chance at winning with another team. But Anaheim's a young team. They got a lot of good pieces now. I mean, signing Mitch Marner, I think, would really help take him to the next level. So here, I think, is what your forward core would look like. I think you'd probably sign one more depth UFA. Let's see. Let's see some guys, probably some wingers. Let's see, maybe Brandon Tanev, but I think he's more of a guy who's going to a playoff team. I think playoff teams will really want Brandon Tanev. I think Marcus Johansson is actually perfect here. I don't know why. He just kind of feels like he would go there, maybe like 2.5 million, something like that for like 1 year. And then, yeah, I mean, you could pretty much slot him in anywhere in your bottom six, especially if you trade Zegras. You put him in here then, and then that would do this. So I actually do kind of think Trevor Zegras will be traded this offseason. So we'll actually leave this like this for now. So let's see some trades though. So I think what the Ducks need to trade for is a better right-hand defenseman. All their young defensemen are lefties, Lacombe, Mintakov, and Zellweger. But on right defense, the only young guy they have is Luneau. And Gudis and Trouba aren't exactly great. I mean, I don't think you'd want Gudis on your first pairing on a good team. But luckily for Anaheim, there are a lot of right-handed defensemen that would fit this role perfectly that I could see getting traded this summer. I have a trade bait list right here that I've been working on. So I think for right defenseman, I think they could go for like Dougie Hamilton or Matt Waugh or Alex Pietrangelo, all guys I could see being traded for cap reasons because all of their teams are good. They have a lot of defensive depth, and those guys have pretty hefty cap hits. And even with the cap rising, maybe these teams have other needs that they need to fill more and that their money would be better allocated somewhere else. So I could see all of them getting traded. The one I'm going to put here, just because I think he's the best fit for the Ducks, is probably going to be Alex Pietrangelo. So a trade for Pietrangelo, I don't, it's hard to gauge what his value is just because he is getting older and, it's a pretty big cap hit. I don't think you're going to retain on him if you're Vegas. You're not going to want to retain on him if you're Vegas, especially, if they make a run for Marner, which, I mean, in this alternate reality, we already got Marner, but I think you'll have to send a draft pick for sure. Probably the 2026 second. And I could definitely see maybe like Hellison or Luneau, one or the other. Going back towards Vegas the other way. So I'll put Luneau for now. But that might be a little much because I think he might be a better prospect than Hellison. So actually we'll go with Hellison instead. We'll do Hellison a second. And Vegas could use some forward depth. Cheap too, Leeson. And maybe you'd have to give him another draft pick to really push it over the edge. But I think maybe something like this. It just helps Vegas shed cap. Get a couple of young guys who can maybe like fit into the real roster later. Not doesn't even have to be right now. Maybe Leeson would, but I think Hellison, just because Vegas already has so many roster defensemen, I don't think he'd be a full-time guy. And then they get 2 picks that they'd probably just end up flipping anyways. So, it's just trade assets for them because they don't really care about the picks themselves. So, and it saves them some cap space. As you see, right now they only have 9.6 million cap space with the cap going up. And they do have some guys that they have to re-sign. Also, though, if you trade Pietrangelo, if you're Vegas, I think that means you keep Nick Hague because they do both shoot the same hand, if I remember correctly. And and I think you only get rid of one, not both. So if they keep Nick Hague, I think you see them go. You could see them trading Petrangelo. Let me just double check that though, see if they are actually the same hand. Petrangelo shoots righty, and Hague is an RFA, and he shoots lefty. Okay, so they don't shoot same hand. Okay, but still, I could see Petrangelo leaving either way. Just because I think Vegas has so many like roster defensemen. So I will submit the trade as is, like this: Petrangelo for Helleson, Leeson a second and a third. That might be shorting the Knights a little bit. That might be favoring Anaheim too much, but I don't really know. But I think if you do this, you give Lunel one more year to develop. He could fill in for injuries. And then, yeah, your top defensive pairing looks a lot better already. And honestly, this defensive depth isn't that terrible. I mean, these guys are all young, and defensemen do take a little bit longer to develop. Lacombe kind of just had his breakout year last year, so I think he'll stay on that first pairing. But I think Mintyukov and Zellweger might still have a couple more years before they really hit their breakout season. But I think putting them in a D pair or a D core with vets like Petrangelo, Trouba, and Gudis, I think could be really beneficial for their development. So yeah, I think I kind of like this as is. And another move, I think they trade Zegras. Where do you think he'll go is the real question. There's a lot of teams who I think would be interested in him, but if you are the Ducks, it's more about what return would you want for him. If I'm the Ducks and I'm looking at this roster, I think the kind of return you would want is maybe like a young bottom six forward or a young right defenseman. Just because Trouba and Gudis are on the last years of their deal. And if you bring in Petrangelo, he's only got 2 years left on his deal, and he's pretty old. So you do want a young right defenseman. So looking at my trade board here, a guy I could see them going for, that they could trade Zegras for. I think if you really want young, I mean, the best guys to go for here would be Brant Clark or Jordan Spence. I have both of them on the board, but I think only one gets traded, not both, just because I don't think the Kings have space to trade both. You need at least one more right defenseman for the long term, if I remember correctly. And everyone else on this board is kind of older, but maybe you could go for something, a little bit more like a guy who's a little bit older, but you could also sign him long term. Rasmus Anderson, maybe, it's an idea. The only reason I wouldn't really like him on this Ducks D core is because you already have Lacombe and Zellweger, who are both offensive defensemen. So if you get Anderson and you sign him long term, I kind of question pairing two offensive defensemen together. I think you kind of need to pair an offensive defenseman with preferably a shutdown guy, but could also be a two-way guy who would just have to play more defensively. So, yeah, I don't know about bringing in Anderson, but he could fit that. They could sign him after his deal's up at the end of this coming season. You could also maybe do Matt Waugh, or not Roy, not Waugh, Roy. But he's 30 and he's signed for 5 more years or something. So would you really want him till he's 35? I don't know. But then that would also mean shipping away one of them, maybe not trading Petrangelo. On second thought, though, maybe you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We'll get rid of this Petrangelo trade for now, actually. And let's see. Who do I think they should go for long term here? Maybe Roy, honestly. Because looking at this board for right-handed defensemen, I mean, I honestly don't really see a lot of guys who kind of fit the Ducks' longer-term plan. Anderson, offensive defenseman, they already have enough. Carlson, same thing. Plus, he's older and wouldn't really be a long-term fit. So you wouldn't want to trade Zegras for him. Connor Murphy, a little bit older, is a shutdown defenseman though, but he is on the older side. They already had Labushkin. He's kind of overpaid and not. He didn't have a great year. Dumba's older. Goodbranson overpaid and old, as is Dumba. Severson's just overpaid, and I mean he's like 30 now, I think, or on the wrong side of 30 at least. And overpaid for what he's worth. Justin Hull, not very good. Spence and Clark, both young, good players, probably have a bright future ahead of them. So the Ducks could go for one or the other of them. But I also think you want a little bit of like veterans on this roster now, because I think if you get Marner, this is a team that could push for the playoffs. And I think having some veterans to go with the young guys is necessary for doing that. I think if you just get one of Clark or Spence, you'd probably have to wait another year just because your team would be too young. But I also don't see LA trading for Zegras. I just don't think they need him. So I can't really see that happening. Dougie Hamilton, old, pretty overpaid, not a lot of term left. Ristolainen, I don't know. He doesn't. I just don't think he really fits with what Anaheim has. Petrangelo. So honestly, yeah, maybe we switch it up. Zegras to the Capitals. I just don't know how I'd feel about that. Honestly, I don't think the Capitals would do that. I don't think they have the need for that either. So yeah, maybe we do revert that Petrangelo move, bring that trade back. Okay. Looks like those aren't doing anything, so let's see. All right, let's just remake the trade then. Petrangelo, what would we have for Hellison, Leeson, and this year's third and next year's second. Hopefully that's a good enough package for Vegas. I don't really know if it is, but also if you're desperate to dump cap, you can't really be picky, and Vegas doesn't really care, as we've seen in the past, trading away guys for absolutely nothing. So I don't think this trade would hurt them too much. I don't think they'd lose any sleep over it, especially if they can do something better with the cap space. So yeah, and yeah, we'll put him back here, him here. But yeah, if I'm Anaheim, honestly, I really am looking to trade Zegras at this point. I just think there's a log jam where he belongs, and he doesn't really want to be there anymore. Maybe you give him a year without Greg Cronin, and that could help. So yeah, honestly, maybe for now we could actually leave this as is. And this is a pretty not pretty deep. It's relatively deep though. Like that top 9 is pretty solid, I'd say. Your fourth liners are a bunch of young guys who could, hopefully at least one of them will overperform a little bit and have a breakout year. Keep him off, yeah. And then the decor is not bad. It's a mix of young guys and vets. You have a good amount of offense, a good amount of shutdown defense, some physicality, and your goaltending's solid. So this might be where I end this video. This one, there's not a whole lot I think they have to do, but I think, getting a first line right wing. If you can't get Marner, it's hard to get Besser or Ehlers. I can't really see them coming to Anaheim, but I think Mitch Marner is the one you go after. And I know that the Ducks are one of the favorites to get him as of right now. And I think that would really help speed up their process. But this team's looking really good, really young. I think a lot of promise on this roster. Your one long-term issue is your right D side. You'd probably want to get a young right defenseman. I don't really know who they have coming up in the system. It looks like they have a lot of young right defensemen, but I'm not going to lie to you and act like I know anything about any of these guys because I don't. And I can't really pick out any names in here either that I know anything about. So yeah, that's probably gonna do it for this roster. Let me know what you think down below. This one's relatively like low moves, but keep following this series. There will be a lot more rosters with a lot more moves than this. This one probably wasn't the most entertaining, but still. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.